Lawmakers are set to perform their constitutional mandate. The Senate and House of Representatives will begin the canvassing of votes for President and Vice President tomorrow. Both chambers resume sessions today and pass resolutions to convene Congress as the National Board of Canvassers. The canvassing is a necessary step for any election to make sure every ballot cast is included in the official count. It is all systems go at the Batasang Pambansa in Quezon City, where the non-stop canvassing will take place. Congress aims to proclaim the new president and vice president before the weekends. As our CNR Kanghel reports, a House official assures the public the speed of canvassing will not affect the accuracy in the counting of votes.
Lawmakers will not be taking a break from 2 p.m. Tuesday when the canvassing of votes for the president and vice president begins. House Secretary General Mark Leandro Mendoza says officials of the House of Representatives and the Senate have agreed to count votes round the clock. The two chambers will officially convene as the National Board of Canvassers in a joint session on Tuesday. In the morning, lawmakers will form a joint committee to canvass the votes. They will also adopt rules that will be followed during the canvassing.
Start natin tomorrow na pag-open natin ng 10 o'clock and resume ng 2 o'clock for the canvassing proper, dire-diretso na tayo. Wala nang break or walang suspension ng session. Pagka magdire-diretso tayo, hopefully by latest will be Thursday morning. Yeah, proclaim na rin po natin Thursday morning. That's latest na po 'yon. Pero pagka wala naman po medyo dire-diretso po tayo, hopefully Wednesday night. Tapos po tayo.
I think they already were advised by the Speaker of the House, Speaker Lord, and I think yesterday pinuntahan din ni Majority Floor Leader Martin Romualdez, si Presumptive President Bongbong Marcos, to make themselves available on Wednesday.
Lawmakers will canvass a total of 173 certificates of canvass. At dawn on Monday, ballot boxes containing 167 COCs and over 440 election returns were transported with police and military escorts from the Senate. The remaining COCs will be received by the Senate beginning Tuesday. During canvassing, the electronically transmitted COCs will be checked against the physically delivered COCs for discrepancies. Lawyers of all candidates will be at the plenary hall to observe the proceedings and raise any concern. The Joint Committee will decide on all issues raised about the COCs by a majority vote of its members, with each panel voting separately. Mendoza says the counting of the votes is expected to be quick since the COCs were transmitted electronically.
Electronic naman so might as well magdiretso na lang para isang trabaho na lang.
Mendoza assures the public the counting of votes will be transparent, with the media allowed to cover the proceedings, which will also be live-streamed online. CNR Kanghel, CNN Philippines.
We'll bring you live pictures as the canvassing happens tomorrow. Stay tuned for that, only here on CNN Philippines. Comlec demanding an explanation from Davao businessman Dennis Uy's F2 Logistics. The company is Comlec's partner in transporting election-related supplies. This is in connection with a viral video showing what appeared to be the dumping of used election materials from Manila in a grassy area in Cavite, as if these were trash. Melissa Lopez also reports the poll body looks to proclaim winning party lists on Thursday, but not before it holds special elections in one town in Mindanao.
The Commission on Elections has instructed courier F2 Logistics to explain why its personnel retrieved at least 10 black boxes containing election paraphernalia from Tondo in Manila, only to dump them in Amadeo, Cavite. Poll officials cannot offer answers, but say this is outside the scope of F2's 535 million peso contract.
Ang pinakamalaking katanungan hanggang ngayon, aaminin ko ako personally, bakit yung iniwan doon? Bakit ka nasa Amadeo? Santa Rosa mo dadalahin yan. Baka naman sila mismo sinasabotahin ng kanilang mga empleyado.
After voting day, F2 trucks should retrieve VCMs only and return them to the Laguna warehouse. What was reportedly dumped were boxes from 10 precincts carrying used ballot secrecy folders, indelible ink, stamp pads, envelopes, and even copies of election returns. Comelec assures the public official ballots remain in their custody and were properly counted in the national tally. Commissioner George Garcia tells F2, its logistics partner since 2018, that it should hold its own probe on the incident. Pending results, he says Comelec may consider cutting ties with the private firm, collecting damages, filing charges, or withholding payment until resolved. Meanwhile, Comelec says all is set for the May 24 special elections in 12 barangays in Tubaran, Lanao del Sur. Over 6,000 voters in 15 precincts will vote after a failure of election on May 9th due to violence. These will dictate the final order of party list winners, with the race too close to call so far. Proclamation for the 63 party list seats in Congress is set for Thursday, provided the Tubaran polls proceed smoothly. Melissa Lopez, CNN Philippines.
In other news, a passenger vessel en route from Polillo Island to Real in Quezon Province caught fire, leaving at least 7 people dead and 24 others injured. The MV Mercraft 2 carried 128 passengers and 8 crew members when it left at around 5 this morning. Philippine Coast Guard says 103 of the passengers have been brought back home. All passengers and crew have been accounted for as of this afternoon. Coming up on Newsnight, presumptive President Bongbong.
Ngayong pandemic, serving others is the best. Sa pagtutulungan, patuloy ang ating laban sa buhay. Kaya dapat always healthy. With proper diet, exercise, and MX3 coffee mix to ignite my day.
Hi guys!
Lagi akong focused, active, at extraordinary. Because the most important things in life deserve nothing less. MX3 coffee mix, my choice.
Welcome back. Presumptive President Bongbong Marcos identifies more people who will make up his incoming cabinet. Marcos also bared what he and top diplomats discussed during their courtesy visit. Tristan Odalo joins us live for more details. Tristan, let's start with Marcos's picks for cabinet members.
Cavite 7th District Representative Boying Remulla has accepted the offer to be the next Justice Secretary. The lawmaker said he did not ask nor apply for the job, but he couldn't say no to the offer of presumptive President Bongbong Marcos. In a media briefing, Marcos enumerated some of the reasons why Remulla is capable of being the next Justice Secretary.
He has a great many years of experience in government, number one, and what many people do not know is that he's actually a very, very good lawyer. And so I think he will fit very nicely into the DOJ.
I really work hard. I am devoted to my duties. Kaya it doesn't take much naman. When you are told by the president, it's understood already.
Apart from Remulla, Marcos's spokesperson and lawyer Vic Rodriguez also accepted the offer to be the next executive secretary. Marcos also announced his offer to Bienvenido Laguesma as Labor Chief, Susan Toots Ople as the head of the newly created Migrant Workers Department, and Arsenio Balisacan as NEDA Secretary. The three have accepted the nomination according to Rodriguez. Marcos says he will reveal more members of his economic team in the coming days. The presumptive president says their focus for now is the canvassing and proclamation. Back to you, Pia.
Tristan, 3 ambassadors and a charge d'affaires paying a courtesy call on Marcos in his headquarters. What was discussed?
Yeah, it's more of cooperation between the Philippines, Japan, South Korea, India, and the United States. Marcos said experts from South Korea would check on the feasibility of reopening the Bataan nuclear power plant. For India, he is looking at partnerships in the fields of agriculture, manufacturing of generic drugs, and microfinancing. The meeting with the United States centered on climate change, trade, economic recovery, and security in the region. Marcos also cited the need to redefine the Visiting Forces Agreement with Washington. The presumptive president has yet to name his Foreign Affairs Secretary. Back to you, Pia.
Tristan Odalo there reporting. Well, what happens to the vacant seat Boying Remulla leaves behind at the lower house now that he has accepted Marcos's offer to become Justice Secretary? COMELEC says it can either assign a so-called caretaker for Cavite's 7th District Representative or hold special elections.
You have to give up one and then accept the other. Halimbawa sa district na yan, gagastos at gagastos ka rin, kulang ang mga 50 million. Sayang din yung 50 million. Pero since magsisimula pa lang ang term, kung ano't ano man, magpatawag ang Kongreso, the Comelec is so prepared to conduct the special election.
Remulla ran for re-election unopposed as representative of Cavite's 7th District in the May polls. Comelec says he is not covered by the one-year ban prohibiting candidates from cabinet appointments because he did not lose. So what are Remulla's plans and priorities once he becomes Justice Secretary? I spoke to him earlier for tomorrow's episode of Politics as Usual. Let's listen in on his agenda.
I didn't apply to be secretary, kasi first of all, I really ran to be a member of the House. And I was expecting to become the majority leader of the House. That's already an arrangement that was being worked out with the presumptive speaker. But actually, 2 or 3 days after the elections, I was called by the president-elect to his home. And we had a conversation where he told me that he wanted me to serve as his Justice Secretary. And Pia, as a lawyer, I can tell you it's every lawyer's dream to attain the rank or status, but it's not the point. The point is really to be able to help the government run things. Probably my leadership style might be compatible with the leadership style of the president. And it's just a dream for me to be able to serve in this capacity. And with the problems the country has, somebody has to step up, and I'm willing to take a challenge for this.
Can you give us an idea of what you're going to be doing as Justice Secretary? Like, what kind of program? What are you going to focus on? Are you going to, like, for example, look very well into the prosecutorial service? Other DOJ programs.
Well, the DOJ is a very, very big department, Pia. First of all, what do you have there? You have the Land Registration Commission. We have the National Bureau of Investigation, Bureau of Corrections and Criminology, and so many other offices. I mean, name it, the DOJ participates in every government activity. So there's so much to do. And the most important thing probably is the rate of prosecution, acquittal, and conviction that is happening right now, where there are jails, when we talk about overcrowded jails, it's because of the slow pace of justice. So probably it's about time that we audit one thing that the first things we can do is to audit all of the detention prisoners to see if they're allowed, they can be freed already, to decongest the jails, and for those that have to be prosecuted to work double time.
In the immediate aftermath of the election, napag-uusapan kasi yung, for example, if BBM were to push his unity theme, his unity campaign theme beyond the campaign and moving forward, that would there be that possibility of the new Marcos administration looking into, for example, the cases against Laila de Lima, who was, and very clearly anyway, was a very severe critic of BBM himself?
Well, that would be part of the continuity of the job that I will have. Alam mo naman, Pia, it's about institutional continuity.
Catch the full interview tomorrow on Politics as Usual at 8:30 in the evening, only here on CNN Philippines. Health officials are finding the close contacts of the first BA.4 case in the country, an international traveler from the Middle East. But what is this subvariant and how different is it from the other offshoots of the Omicron variant? Kylin Bonkin reports.
In a race between circulating variants of concern, Omicron infects people faster than Delta. But Omicron has even more transmissible offshoot. Currently, BA.2 is dominant globally. But new subvariants BA.4 and 5, along with BA.2.12.1, are even more infectious.
We can be reinfected with B4 or B5, even if we were exposed to BA1.
Infectious diseases specialist Ron Jean Solantes says changes in the virus have allowed BA.4 and 5 to escape a person's protection against coronavirus built from previous infection or vaccination, especially without booster shot.
Especially for those who were given vaccines last year, particularly the primary vaccine series, there's no guarantee that it will protect us with this B4 and B5. The waning protection is faster with BA4. That's why the primary vaccine series is not enough.
These caused yet another surge in COVID-19 cases in South Africa and Portugal, even after the Omicron BA.1 wave early this year. Just last week, the European Center for Disease Control and Prevention declared these as variants of concern. But when it comes to severity, the European CDC says Delta still causes the most serious COVID-19 infection. There's no evidence yet for BA.4 and 5. Dr. Solantes says health authorities should still be on the lookout if those reinfected have had booster shot.
If those who were boosted already and yet acquired the infection, then there's a possibility that the second booster is in place for the general public.
While data on variants keep changing, doctors remind the public to keep doing what has brought COVID-19 cases down, like proper masking, hand sanitizing, isolating when sick, and getting up to date with vaccines. Caroline Bongkin, CNN Philippines.
The Health Department also tracking the local transmission of the Omicron subvariant BA.2.12.1. The weekly case tally rose to over 1,200 from May 16 to 22, almost 10% higher than the previous week. Now, as the COVID-19 pandemic drags on, more cases of a rare disease have been reported worldwide. The World Health Organization detects 92 confirmed cases and 28 suspected infections of monkeypox in 12 countries, including the United States. It says it expects more monkeypox cases in the coming days. The monkeypox virus is different from the virus that causes chickenpox. Initial symptoms include fever, chills, exhaustion, headaches, and muscle weakness. Monkeypox is spread through close contact with an infected person. U.S. President Joe Biden has raised the alarm at the rising monkeypox cases, although he said it was not as concerning as COVID-19.
It is something that everybody should be concerned about. We're working on it hard to figure out what we do and what vaccine, if any, may be available for it. But it is a concern in the sense that if it were to spread, it's consequential.
Biden made the remarks during his visit to Japan today, where he also unveiled an economic plan countering China. Biden said 13 nations will join the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework that will reduce dependence on the Asian superpower. Biden first visited South Korea last week in an effort to increase Asian cooperation. Back here at home, a glimmer of hope for displaced victims 5 years since the war in Marawi. Maranao leaders hailed the passage of a law that will help them recover properties they lost. But as George Quiles reports, residents are no longer expecting too much.
Displaced residents may not be satisfied with the slow-paced rehabilitation of Marawi City. But with the passage of the Marawi Siege Victims Compensation Act just this April, Maranaos became optimistic yet realistic on what lies ahead.
Regardless of the amount, the Compensation Act is a recognition that we are victims, but we are not expecting na ang maibabalik sa amin is yung nawala sa amin.
The law aims to give monetary compensation to displaced residents of the Islamic City through the 9-member Compensation Board. Task Force Bangon Marawi Chairperson and Housing Secretary Eduardo Del Rosario says he will ask President Rodrigo Duterte to appoint the composition of the board so that they may start the ball rolling.
We also network with the city government so that they can help us in getting the names of recommendings for the composition of the 9-member compensation board. I think 4 will be coming from the Lanao del Sur province or from the city, and the other 5 will come from the other areas.
All right, sir.
So that it will be a balanced composition based on their expertise and competence.
The clock is ticking as President Duterte will step down in more than a month. This is the reason why residents fear that they will be left hanging if the Duterte administration will not act as soon as possible. The rehabilitation of Marawi won't be completed under the Duterte administration. This is why the Maranaos are appealing to the incoming administration to prioritize and fast-track all ongoing projects to help rebuild their homes and livelihood that were destroyed by the war. With no generic nor specific plans on Marawi from the incoming administration, more questions are now being raised.
Ang daming uncertainties ngayon dahil lang sa nangyari at ang daming hindi natapos. Lalong-lalo na yung rehabilitation. We don't know. He was very quiet during the entire campaign, so we don't know whether he's going to pursue the compensation, etc. We know that it is already a law, so they have to deal with it. The problem, of course, is we need a budget for that.
Senate Special Committee on Marawi Rehabilitation Chairman Senator Ronald De La Rosa commits to Maranaos that he will push for the funding of the compensation law in the next Congress.
For purposes of continuity, para sa akin, I would recommend to the incoming president na sana tuloy-tuloy na niya ito.
Maranaos know that their hardships will not end soon. While they can still wait, they are hoping that they will not be forgotten as a new chapter of the country's history is about to unfold. From Marawi City, George Cahiles, CNN Philippines.
The late queen of Philippine movies, Susan Roces, will be laid to rest on Thursday. Supporters and personalities paid their respects to the actress at her wake in Taguig City. The Senate unanimously approved a resolution expressing its sympathy and condolences. Senator Grace Poe thanked colleagues for honoring her mother. She recalled their last conversation where Roces congratulated her for the passage of the founding law.
Here today, in spite of the fact that her wake is ongoing, I guess, because it's also comforting to be surrounded by friends and also to finish my work. My mom would always encourage me, no matter what, to finish what I started.
We just want to extend our condolences at taus-pusong pakikiramay. Kasi alam naman natin, of course, aside from kaibigan natin, yung pamilya, ay gusto rin natin talagang ibigyan ng tribute yung si Mrs. Poe sa kanyang malaking naitulong sa bansa natin at saka sa development ng industry in general. So, yun lang po. Kami po ay nakikiramay sa pamilya po nila.
The interment is expected to take place at the Manila North Cemetery. Senator Poe's half-sister Lovie Poe and Makati Councilor Jong Hilario were among those present at the wake. Roces' husband, Fernando Poe Jr., died in December 2004. Still ahead on Newsnight, Team Philippines wrapping up its campaign at this year's Southeast Asian Games in Hanoi. Plus, the FEU cheering squad reclaims the UAAP cheer dance crown. Keep it here on CNN Philippines.
Fried chicken? Timplang happy. Tocino? Timplang magandang gising. Inasal? Ito, medyo timplang umuusok. Galit-galitan. Spicy? Timplang hot na hot. With easy-to-cook Magnolia Chicken Timplados. Iba't ibang sarap ng chicken, kaya. Ikaw, anong Magnolia Chicken Timplados mo? Iba't ibang easy chicken sarap.
Land Bank has always believed that in this country, we have to dream big. And so we learned to build something out of nothing, improving the quality of life for our people, so that we can keep in step with a brave new world and make our big dreams come true.
You're watching Newsnight on CNN Philippines. After over a decade, the FEU cheering squad reclaims the UAAP cheer dance crown. The squad won Sunday's event at the Mall of Asia Arena with a rock and roll routine set to songs by Queen. The previous back-to-back winner, the NU Pep squad, slipped to second runner-up while Adamson came in as first runner-up. FEU last nabbed the title in 2009. Competition has become the talk of the internet, topping Twitter's trending list until today. Fans congratulated the new title holders using the hashtag #WeWillRockFEU. While some netizens say the NU's pink and green scarves may have been a show of support for presidential and vice presidential candidates Leni Robredo and Kiko Pangilinan, the tandem's colors are pink and green. Some UP fans expressed disappointment. They tweeted the squad should have made a political or impactful message with their routine, which was K-pop themed this year. UP notably used past performances to champion gender equality and support student athletes. Other posts commended all three podium finishers, FEU, Adamson, and NU, for their dazzling performances. The schools have dominated the past three cheer dance competitions, consistently placing at least third since 2018. Now, moving on to the NCAA, the Letran Knights are back-to-back champions. The team defeated the Mapua Cardinals 75-65 in Game 2 of the finals yesterday. MVP and Rookie of the Year Renz Abando led Letran with 14 points and 12 rebounds. And over in Vietnam, Team Philippines ending its Southeast Asian Games campaign at 4th place overall. That is with 226 medals, 52 gold, 70 silver, and 104 bronzes. Host country Vietnam topped the regional meet with 446 medals under its belt. Thailand and Indonesia were at 2nd and 3rd place, respectively. But before the Philippines capped off its run, the boxing team scored 3 gold medals, courtesy of Olympian Yumir Marshall, Ian Clark Bautista, and Rogen Ladon. The Gilas women also bagged gold despite finishing with a 4-1 record, identical to Indonesia. The Philippines holds the head-to-head advantage after beating Indonesia in their last matchup last May 16. But in men's basketball, Indonesia dethroned Gilas Pilipinas for the title, winning the final game 85-81. Gilas settled for silver, marking the first time in 33 years that the team is not taking gold. The SEA Games closing ceremony is set for 9 p.m. Philippine time at the Dinh Indoor Catholic Athletics Arena in Vietnam. And that is it for now. Join me again on News.ph at 7 p.m. I'm Pia Ontiveros for Newsnight, where we go above and beyond headlines.
This program is
There's a popular saying that goes, confidence is the most powerful thing that you can wear. When you feel good about your abilities, trust your own judgment, and accept who you are, you can be your happiest and healthiest self. But self-confidence is something we all can use a little help with. On the program today, we'll talk more about the impact it can have in our lives and practical as well as effective tips in order to boost someone's self-confidence. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and welcome to Mental Health Talk on CNN Philippines. Our guests are here today to give us some practical tips. With us is Luis Angelo Villaruel. He's a psychologist at Kitsugi Sai and Dementia Society of the Philippines. Also with us is Matt Doming, who is a psychologist and life coach from M-Psych Services. Self-confidence can significantly improve someone's life, but it's not to be confused with that of arrogance. I'll start the discussion with Luis. Could you tell us what exactly is the definition of being self-confident?
Self-confidence is the belief in oneself or the ability to engage adequately with challenges. Appropriate self-confidence requires a realistic sense of feeling secure in one's capabilities. We all need some help in developing this because actually self-confidence is not something we're born with innately. It's something that we develop for ourselves, and it's something that's highly connected with self-esteem, which is the valuation of our own worth.
Now, Luis, let's talk about what goes on in the body of someone physiologically, the brain chemicals involved whenever someone has that good self-confidence. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Self-confidence is related mostly to two neurotransmitters, namely dopamine and serotonin. So as we know, serotonin is the happy hormone, and studies show that high serotonin activity is positively correlated with less anxiety and more confidence. So it's more about how serotonin actually boosts and gives us a greater feeling of confidence. For dopamine, this is more to feel more pleasure.
Coach Matt, when it comes to self-confidence, how exactly can having self-confidence improve someone?
It involves about being true to yourself, being honest with what you feel, how your attitude in life. No, it has something to do with knowing your strengths and weaknesses. So in that case, you know where you are good at and where you are not good at. So kumbaga, it's both knowing your talents and skills and at the same time your personal limitation.
It may be often overlap, self-confidence and self-esteem. Pareho lang ba itong dalawa or is there a difference between self-esteem and self-confidence?
They are really very much interrelated. And I really think that self-confidence is the effect of how we value ourselves, which is in that case called self-esteem. Self-confidence is believe sa sarili. Like you are confident that you can do this thing or cannot do this thing. But self-esteem has something to do with how much you value yourself. Do you see yourself in a high value or low value? And it has something to do with different experiences that we had in our life. So the better self-esteem, the higher your self-esteem, mataas ang pagpapahalaga sa sarili, then it follows that your self-confidence is also high.
What about the lack of thereof? How does this negatively impact not just relationship, society, but also the mental well-being of someone?
Those kasi that have low self-confidence typically believe they can't do things. They believe that they're always going to make mistakes and they define themselves by those mistakes and their flaws. They believe that they have little or no control over the situation. And this causes them to have all sorts of problems. The thing is, this low self-confidence could be coming from insecurities that they might have that they are not able to deal with on their own. And it could cause a myriad of problems physically and psychologically. So for example, the first problem that they could be experiencing is oversleeping. Because tayo naman, pagka na-overwhelmed tayo, di ba? Minsan natutulog na lang tayo para we get to rest and rejuvenate. However, worst case scenario for someone with low confidence is baka mag-spiral sila in a way na, sige, matutulog muna ako. Then pagising, they still believe that they can't handle the task, pero may madadagdag na task ulit, and then matutulog and repeat, and it gets harder and harder for them to break that cycle.
Is it possible that someone has gone through most of their life with having low self-confidence pero hindi nila actually nare-realize ito?
There is one thing that we are really bad at, no? For most of us, and that is knowing ourselves. And sometimes we are not even familiar about the things that we need to improve in ourselves, which includes having low self-confidence. And when we talk about having low self-confidence, it has something to do with our experiences in life, especially when we were kids, when we were growing up. Maybe we had experiences with people criticizing us more than praising us, or maybe for some people hindi talaga na-experience yung ma-praise yung lagi na lang silang napupuna. And at some point they live through life, nakasanayan nila na I'm shy, I don't really interact with people that well, I don't believe in myself. And for some of them, they think that that's normal. And we know for sure that we are alive, we can still develop ourselves. And we need to develop ourselves. That's why we have, therapy, we have life coaching and all those things to improve ourselves. But of course, for some people, they are not aware that these things really needs improvement.
Now, a lack of self-confidence brings about negativity as well as doubt, and this can impact our physical health. More on this when we return. We're your partner in healthcare. You're watching NetTalk Health Talk. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and welcome back to MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines, where caring is our calling. Now, today we're talking about practical and effective ways to improve our self-confidence and why it's very important to do so. Now, many people do struggle with low self-confidence. Luis, when do we know that low self-confidence is a cause for concern? And what are some of the mental illnesses that may arise?
It can go unnoticed to that person kasi because they've kind of built a life now, especially when you've reached adulthood na, you've kind of developed all these coping mechanisms, all of these strategies to try to continue to live your life without necessarily dealing with those insecurities. So sometimes in relationships, it could come out, no? It could become a dependent nature because those with low self-confidence don't really value yung sa sarili nila, no? Low self-confidence and low self-esteem, they don't value their own worth, they don't value themselves. So they have to look for someone to attach to, and that could cause them to be dependent to that partner. No? Sometimes this also bleeds into the lack of self-care, no? Not establishing boundaries for oneself. Yung parating nag-yes lang ng yes dahil kasi natatakot sila na if they reject a friend or if they say no to someone, baka hindi na sila aayain ulit and they'll be left alone, which is what they don't want to be, no? Because they cannot, they have this difficulty of being alone.
In our everyday life, we come across challenges and obstacles. And even if we take them on confidently, we may fail at those things. Now, failure is a part of life, but it can affect our mental state. Coach Matt, when it comes to dealing with failure, dealing with situations, how could we manage situations like this and still remain confident?
If we remain realistic, mistakes and failures are part of success. And most likely, having true self-confidence, no? Ang sabi natin kanina, it's not just about knowing about your strengths. It's also knowing about your personal limitations. That human as we are not perfect. We are really bound to commit mistakes. And in order for us to really develop self-confidence, true self-confidence, we need to acknowledge those personal limitations. And ang pinakauna dyan is tanggapin natin na tao lang tayo, nagkakamali.
What's your advice for people who are really having a hard time accepting failure? Not just failure, but rejection, for that matter, Coach Matt.
It would be very extremely difficult for some, especially kapag merong mga social anxiety, no? Especially kapag merong mga mental disorders, that would really be very hard. And it's not just as easy as telling them, just tanggapin mo na yan at bumangon ka na, no? Just move on. And it's really hard. Sometimes it would be helpful to grieve on the process. Like, for example, you failed in a board exam. It's not easy, especially if your family is expecting too much of you. Sometimes you need to grieve, you need to cry over it. No, if you have a friend, if may mga kaibigan kang handang makinig sa'yo, tell them about how hurtful that experience was, no? And because grieving about the negative experiences in our life, especially those that really pull down our self-confidence, will really help because it would be, it would release the negative emotions connected to those situations. And if negative emotions is not there, it would be easier for us to be rational.
Luis, what can you say about that advice? We have to identify our emotions and be rational. But what about those whenever they feel that trigger, sort of kumbaga shut down ang pinag-uusapan doon, where all form of reason is lost? What kind of tips can you give the loved ones of people like that, or even that person themselves?
So whether that be family, that be friends, a significant other, basta social support niya, what they can mostly that they can only do at some points kasi is to continuously offer their support. Most of the time kasi nire-reject na ng tao outright, siguro for the first few times, yung offering of the support, pero that constant presence kasi can be reassuring to the individual who's going through all of these things, no? Now, for the person themselves, when they start to feel like they're spiraling na out of control, ang suggestion talaga dyan is to try to do some grounding exercises. Now, grounding yourself in reality, grounding yourself in your senses, grounding yourself in realistic things. Kasi yun yung thing, pagka nagiging anxious ka na because you have low self-confidence or because you're spiraling out of control, you need something to anchor you down. So one thing that you can do is just write down whatever it is that you're thinking of, what you're feeling, and how you're acting at that moment. Another technique that they could do other than journaling, if they really feel like they're out of control, we can actually call it yung mammalian dive reflex. So kahit just splashing water on your face and really with cold water to slow down your heart rate, to slow down your thoughts, to slow down everything about you muna, so you can get to that more relaxed position. And then you can count things with your 5 senses. So for example, 5 things that you can see around the room. What are their properties that you can see? Things that you can smell, things that you can hear, things that you can touch, and maybe even taste. Once you try to activate these 5 senses, kasi it helps you ground yourself into real things, no? Not just whatever's running wild in your head.
What are the effective ways to boost your self-confidence? More on this when we return. Your health is our mission here on MedTalk Health Talk. We'll be right back. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and welcome back to MedTalk Health Talk here on CNN Philippines. You can do so much with the proper self-confidence, but building it takes practice. For one, it's hard to feel good about yourself if you're abusing your body. Coach Matt, what are some self-care tips to improve our self-confidence?
Eat healthy, sleep well, take care of your body, because sometimes promoting those things that can improve our self-confidence, such as good health, good appearance, then most likely it can also be a additional factor to boost your self-confidence. There are also things that you can do mentally. And number one is to help yourself accept those things that you don't really like in you. Maybe physically, there are a lot of social standards about beauty na sometimes hindi pasok yung ating katawan. Sometimes we are insecure about our skin, insecure about our face and all. But nonetheless, it's really important to accept what we have. Kasi again, confidence is accepting your strengths, what's good in you, and those things that you think are not socially acceptable in you.
How can someone realize from low self-confidence, naging overconfident naman nila? What are some of the detriments to this?
There is a thin line between true confidence and overconfidence. Now, ang pinaka number one indicator dyan, someone na apparently is confident pero just overconfident is kapag hindi nila alam yung mga personal limitations nila. So kumbaga, parang sa sobrang taas ng pag-value nila sa sarili, hindi na nakikita na yung ibang tao may halaga din. Kaya natatapakan yung ibang tao. Like say for example, sa conversation, because you think that you are more superior, then you have all the strengths and all the other people are inferior to you, masosolo mo yung conversation. So kumbaga, that would end up detrimental to you as well kasi hindi magkakaroon ng proper communication, lalayo ang mga tao sa iyo. Or for example, sa trabaho, like sinosolo mo lahat ng spotlight na hindi mo na nabibigyan ng proper opportunities yung colleagues mo, or sometimes natatapakan mo na rin yung boss mo, then most likely that would create conflict and that would create some bad effects in your career.
Luis, when it comes to trying to boost someone's self-confidence, one of the things that is done quite frequently, people are aware it or not, is that they compare themselves with others. Yun yung nagiging basis nila. What can you say about this, Luis? People comparing themselves with others.
It actually stems from a sense of inferiority. So those with overconfidence kasi, they try to overcompensate naman that inferiority by trying to create a mask in order to control the environment around them, because they feel like their own insecurity or their own inferiority is so hard to overcome, they would rather change the world around them than rather change themselves kasi. No? So yun nga, it comes from a sense of superiority rather than success. We have what we call kasi striving for success and striving for superiority. And those with overconfidence, that's why they have this tendency to compare themselves to others, because they cannot compare it to themselves, to their previous selves, because they don't really see themselves as a worthy standard to base themselves on, no? So actually, in that sense kasi, both low self-confidence and overconfidence stem from the exact same thing, from that inferiority. And those with overconfidence kasi feel the need that they have to prove themselves kasi to themselves and to everyone else.
Malaking factor ba that someone surround themselves with positive people?
If we surround ourselves with people na supportive, at the same time nakikita yung tunay nating halaga, like you go into a working environment that your talent is being appreciated, like your family is seeing your potential, then that would really be a great factor na mag-boost ng self-confidence mo. Pero of course, kailangan din maging realistic sometimes. No? So supporting the person's talent and abilities only if deserved naman talaga niya. No? Kasi kapag sinosobrahan din natin ang pagpipraise na hindi natin pinapakita yung personal limitations ng tao, doon papasok yung tinatawag nating overconfidence na pinag-uusapan natin. No? Kaya ang advice ko sa iba, no? This is my advice to some of my clients during therapy, na why not try to change your environment? Just try to change, and maybe let's see if there is an effect. Kasi sometimes getting out from that environment na nag-pull down ng self-confidence mo in the first place might really help, because the environment again is a significant factor.
Thank you very much, psychologist Luis Villaruel and life coach Matt Doming, for being with us today. We appreciate your time and your insights very much. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and we'll see you again next time.